Welcome to the special public meeting of August 26, 2019 of the Township of Washington Township Council. Adequate notice of the meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by the Township Clerk to at least 2 newspapers on August 21, 2019, and this notice has been posted on the Township Bulletin Board and on the Township website. Please notify the Township Clerk for any disability requirements necessary for attendance at Mayor and Council meetings. The fire exits are located through the double doors to your right and through the door on your left. Please silence all cell phones. Could everyone please stand for a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Roll call.
Councilman Bruno?
Here.
Councilman Casio?
Here.
Councilman Cumming?
Here.
Councilman Ullman?
Here.
Council President DeSena?
Here. Let the record reflect also in attendance Mayor Peter Calamari, Township Attorney Ken Poller, CFO Judy Curran, and Township Clerk Susan Wachowski. At this time, do I have a motion to open the meeting up to the public?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Would anybody like to come up and address the council at this time?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Daniel Steinhagen. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Beatty Padavano. I'm here on behalf of the concerned neighbors of Washington Township. My partner John Lamb was here, I believe, a couple weeks ago when the council considered ordinance 19-16, and I wanted to reiterate our same concerns that were applicable then are applicable now to the ordinance that's on the agenda for introduction tonight. In addition to that, we're very concerned by the fact that the special meeting notice that the council published on the 23rd in the record does not reflect that that ordinance would be on for public consideration for introduction. I can read it to you, Ms. Wiskow. I don't see it there. It says the following business, and this is the notice that I got from the New Jersey Press Association website, published in the record on August 23rd. Introduction of bond ordinance 19-18, introduction of ordinance 19-19, adopt resolution amending fire department bylaws, formal action related to the subject matter. Doesn't say anything about an ordinance with respect to the planning board, at least the one that was published.
Hold on one second, Mr. Stein.
Thank you.
You want to take a minute to look at it?
Yeah, we'll get it, but this is
We got to get the one that's paper published. Mr. Steinhagen, could we take a few minutes? Fair to go upstairs and get it? Can we let somebody come up and we'll come back to you if you don't mind?
Absolutely. I mean, if
that
you want
all
me to, I can give the rest of my comments and then I'll be done. And, but I mean, if you're happy, if you
I'd like to address one at a time. This way we can address. Yeah.
Understand.
Oh, she's got to record the name and
It's
address.
recording. It's recording.
It's recording.
You want to do it? Okay.
All right. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Diane Grimaldi, 441 Van Amberg Avenue. I have 3 questions. Has a new wetlands remediation permit been applied for on the township parcel of land that Vivianos need to purchase in order to make their project viable? The original application expired in July of this year.
I am unaware of anything that the town has applied for.
Or that, well, Mr. Viviano applied for it first, so you have not received any notice that.
I have not. I can only tell you that I am unaware of anything the town has done with respect to that.
Okay. My next question is, the cleanup of the debris on the Viviano property has stalled since 2016, with just a portion of the rusty vehicles and other abandoned garbage left to continue to break down into the soil, causing further probable contamination. Why has the administration of this town allowed the Vivianos to maintain a dump for all these years without it being addressed even after neighbor complaints, including neighbor complaints in writing to the mayor in 2016 and the council members at that time? And
I asked Mr. Tovo for a report on why we stopped the enforcement that was started last year, and he's not here tonight to address that, Diane, so I did ask for it.
last, the Vivianos applied for and were approved woodland tax exemption status 2 years ago. This status requires them to be good stewards of the property with strict minimum state guidelines of what is needed to be done on the property to maintain the status. So far, they have done none of the work required. Why is this town allowing them to pay almost nothing in taxes, saving the Vivianos tens of thousands of dollars every year, while in my opinion, they're cheating the hardworking taxpayers of this town?
Well, the issue of the exemption, it falls to the assessor, and I don't know that the assessor, I don't know what the status of that is in terms of his investigation or what he's done.
He approved it.
Okay, but I'm just saying, I don't know what investigation he does or what his follow-up is, so I think we should be asking him about that.
And after all these years, nothing's ever being done.
So,
It's always, we'll look into this.
so Mr. Pollard, I would imagine that the assessor makes the determination on the status, the tax status. But if that status is granted based on a program that they have to maintain or upkeep of the property or maintenance of some type of work on the property, would that reside with the tax assessor, or?
I have to go into it to find that out. I don't think we've been presented with that. I have to find out if there's a follow-up that is required for him to do, or if something has to be brought to his attention, or, you know, what the protocol is. Okay, yeah. We have to check with the assessor to see what his obligations are in terms of meeting the requirements, the continued requirements. He makes the initial determination, that's true. As far as who follows up on things, for example, I think they got to produce $500 worth of material, I think if I remember correctly. But as far as that, I think we need to check with the assessor first to find out if he has a program to follow that up, if it's something that the code official has to follow up, or who has to follow up. So that's what has to be done.
Well, I do have, I'm sorry.
I don't want to take, I'll follow up after.
I do have a letter from the state about their approval, and it says, "Dear Tomaron Inc., your tax year 2018 application for farmland assessment and company information has been received by the New Jersey Forest Service and assigned to this regional office for review. Woodland management forest stewardship plans submitted under farmland assessment that prescribe activities within forested wetlands and/or flood hazard zones must be in compliance with the requirements of the New Jersey Forestry and Wetlands Best Management Practice Manual and current regulations. All best management practices described in the Woodland Management Forest Stewardship Plan and in the New Jersey Forestry and Wetlands Best Management Practices Manual must be followed. Any deviation from the Woodland Management Forest Stewardship Plan without prior authorization of this office will result in revoking of the Woodland Management Forest Stewardship Plan. For your information and guidance to the New Jersey Forestry and Woodlands Best Management Practices Manual can be downloaded by going to this web address." It goes on to say that it has been deemed sufficient.
Well, they approved it, not Murray.
And your tax assessor will make the final determination on farmland assessment qualification. But I believe that the town, somebody in the town needs to follow up, because as of 2017, they were approved, and nothing's happened. Nothing's happened. And, all the guidelines are here, and no one's doing anything. We live next to a dump that's not paying much in taxes at all. It went from over $1 million in an assessed price to $2,000. You're paying nothing.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
So,
Would anybody else like to come up and address?
just, may I have a follow-up? With Ken. You mentioned, I think, that they have to sell $500 or?
Okay, that was for the farmland, as I recall, the farmland qualification. I'm not addressing anything about the woodland program.
Okay.
I'm just addressing the.
But
what
there was
and that's what I
a minimum
recall.
amount they needed to sell, Mike.
Yeah.
There
So
was-
if they're selling something off of that land, do they have a business on that land? And if, in order to sell something and show revenue, I would think you would have to have a business. And if you have a business, do they have a variance to run a business in a residential zone?
Okay, so I don't know whether they have a business, and I don't know whether it is a business, and I don't know whether they're cutting their own wood and selling $500. It doesn't take much to sell $500 worth of wood.
I understand that, but I guess the question is, if you're selling something,
I understand.
then you're operating a business. And my question would be, if they're operating a business, have they received a variance to run that business from that land? And I guess the question, I don't know who that question should be directed at to specifically within our administration. Does it?
Zoning officer.
Zoning? So,
We're still waiting on the response from him also on the follow-up for the summonses that were supposed to be issued last year, which I asked Mr. Tovo about 2 weeks ago, what the status was of all those violations that were brought up almost a year ago to date. We haven't heard anything back, and asked for a report back on that, so.
thank you, Michael.
One comment real quick. If they are running a business, they're required to have a tax ID number, so that should be easy to assess, because they have to file, no matter what they're doing, they have to file taxes somewhere along the line, whether or not it's zoned or not. So,
Well,
that's...
if they want to, more power to them to use every aspect of tax law, regulate, whatever. But just as they want to leverage everything and use every lever, we should ensure that the levers that they're pulling are being properly enforced.
Correct.
So,
I agree.
Okay.
Mike, may I just make a comment on one thing? When they started clearing that land and we had visibility to the trucks and everything else and the buses that were back here, months ago, we brought this up, and apparently we were not allowed to go on the property and take pictures, but there were several comments, and even I made, you can go an IHA and take pictures, you don't have to be there. So here we are months later, and I don't know if the code officer has done anything, or have we issued summons?
That's why I asked Mr. Tovo for a follow-up on where the status
But
of
this
those.
has been months. We should have summonses and fines, and, like we said, him in the
Not an
pockets.
argument with you.
Okay,
It's been months, almost a year now, that we asked them to go out
Yeah,
there.
I agree.
And I asked for a status update. Are they in court? What are they doing with those summonses? And I haven't heard anything back. I hope, Mr. Mayor, we could have that for our next meeting.
Certainly. Yep.
Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this?
Why don't you return the-
Oh, let's go back to Mr. Stein.
I'm happy to let the residents go, and I can, if you want to have the residents go.
You have the thing?
Can I see that for a
Can
second,
you
please?
just, can you maybe
Would you
just
have, please?
have a sidebar with,
They asked me to approach, but I guess you called me up.
yeah, you don't have to approach.
So that's a printout from the Press Association website, which aggregates all the legal notices published in the state of New Jersey. And it was published in the Record on Friday. So if there was something different that was published, that's also a concern to us, but
Yeah, it's different numbers. Okay.
can I ask which newspaper is Ms. Wiskowski brought down?
The Bergen Record.
Okay, it's different?
No, it's the same thing. It's
Okay.
it's two ordinances in one
Okay.
resolution. That's how it's read. You read it as adopting a resolution for the bylaws.
Well, it doesn't say anything about ordinance 19-20, which
No,
is,
because I found out over the weekend that I had duplicated a number. So I re-advertised we posted the website,
was it sent to a newspaper?
The agenda is not sent to the newspaper.
No, I understand, but
yes,
for a
but
special
you said,
meeting, you're
yes.
supposed to give the
Yeah.
agenda to a newspaper capable of publishing at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting.
Correct.
So our concern is that, and look, I understand that there's a mistake, it's just that, given that the predecessor
We
ordinance...
could delay it another week. It's not a problem.
I'm just,
We're delaying it this long. It's been 18 years, so.
So why don't we just take it off the
We're
agenda?
going to have to because it's the wrong number.
Take it off.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're going to take it off the agenda and repost it for the next meeting. That's what we're going to do. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Hello.
Hello.
Megan Calais, 6 Katharina Place. So a couple things. So first off, I'm 100% for the firehouse. I think we need to get this done for these guys. One of the things that really frustrates me, though, is that here we stand, and I know some people's concern is over cost, right, for this firehouse. Yet we are giving away tax revenue by allowing this Viviano property to be assessed at $2,000. That's money that could offset.
Mrs. Calais, I just want to
Yep.
stop you there. We didn't give them that
Okay,
exemption.
well, they
The
have it
state-
somehow.
The state gave it to them.
Yes,
So we
but
have to
that-
accept what the state's finding is.
Well, yeah.
No, after the state approved it. Yes.
And but once the state approves their status, there's absolutely nothing we can do to come back at them for the
what
fact
we're
that
told.
well, I have it right here, they sold $525 worth of wood off of that property. And their tax bill went from $1 million down to, or not a tax bill, but their assessment went from $1 million down to $2,000. I mean, I'm sure I could find $500 worth of something to sell out of my house, and if my taxes could get assessed down to $2,000, that'd be pretty great. So the next thing, though, is current zoning for the project has it where a fire truck cannot turn around in the cul-de-sac. And I think that it's, especially, you know, if we get these guys a new fire truck, which I think would be amazing as well, we need to make sure that, you know, these guys are able to do their jobs and we're not setting them up for failure. So we need to really stand behind and make sure that safety is something that we're all really taking into consideration on this. Finally, the last thing that just kind of blows my mind is if I wanted to do something to my house, right, I'd have to go in and I have to get approvals and all of these things. And then I decided to wait 20 years, right? Would I be able to do everything at old standards? I think this is simply just asking people to keep this developer at the same standards that you would expect your taxpayers to be at. And finally, again, we've never wanted to stop this development. That's never been our point. We've always just wanted it to be done right. But I really hope that all of you, and some of you, can stop looking at our comments and concerns with such contempt. We're really not trying to hurt anyone or, you know, stop this. We just want this to be done right. And I think that, you know, the same way that we're held to certain standards when we do things to our homes, we should hold this developer to current standards as well. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Calais.
May I make a comment?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let me say, if anyone on the planning board you feel is talking or commenting out of turn, I need to know that, because that wouldn't be right, and that's not someone I want on the board, or, you know, even if any one of us elected officials. So unless you can point me to someone who is doing that, I just want to correct for the
Is your
record.
mic on, Mr. Mayor?
It's on.
He can't hear you.
Okay. As far as I know, no one on the board or on this council has said anything positive or negative. We're neutral, at least I'll speak for myself. I'm neutral until all the facts are in, so
No. Can I?
that's up to Mike.
No, we're done. Next, anybody else? Yes, Mrs. Osmond.
Mary Ann Osmond, 960 Adams Place. I listened to the 3 hours away, so I listened to the 3-hour meeting. It was one of the most interesting meetings I've ever listened to. The audit report, just a comment real quick. Mr. DeSanto, you made a statement that Mrs. Curran was here for 2 weeks in December and then this past year. I have a little bit of a debate with that. I almost jumped up at the TV. Our former CFO retired in actually 2012. and Judy Curran and Ashley Marone for the next 5 to 7 years. They were part-time CFOs. Now, a part-time CFO who comes at night or on the weekends, they should know everything that's going on in this town. Just same thing if they're full-time CFOs. And I find it very difficult to think Mrs. Curran wouldn't know about the fixed assets. Fixed assets have always been done by the CFO. And we've never had comments.
She got hired December 15th, Mary.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when she actually worked for this town, she knew all about fixed assets. This was a constant situation. Mrs. Doe, who, she's passed away, so saying her name I don't think is, but Mrs. Doe always did the fixed assets. Always. So, to be honest with you, that was always part of the charge of the CFO. All right, now I want to go on to I am going to talk about the zoning and planning board matter. Mr. Poller, the planning board, 1976, it was when it was put in our code. And the zoning board having the 2 alternates is 1982. Because I kept saying it was before my time and I didn't come on board until 1985. So I knew it was a long, long time before those alternates were actually put on there. And in 76, when the planning board came about, there was never a thought, and hadn't been since that time. And most meetings I was there, I typed all the minutes. None of that has ever really happened. Now, the 2 alternates, it seems that there's one person recusing themselves and one may recuse themselves. I have a little suggestion. Way back when, the Zoning Board of Adjustment actually had an application for the Knights of Columbus. And when the Knights of Columbus came to us, they couldn't be heard because so many members of the zoning board were members of the Knights of Columbus. So Mr. Poller, you and Manny Tascos, who was our attorney, municipal judge, you talked, and I know you did because I was the secretary at the time, and it was decided that they would go to the zoning board. The planning board, excuse me, it's the opposite way. They'd go to the planning board and they would ask, I don't know how many members, but there was quite a few because there were so many of the zoning board and members of the planning board who were not members of the Knights of Columbus to listen to those cases. And it was only this one time in all of the years that I've worked for this town that this ever happened. My estimation of, and right now we've had a planning board member who's been sick and has cancer. 3 years, he hasn't been attending any meetings. So they've been down 1 member for all of these years. So it's not as if there were any handicap that be down even 2 members. Mr. Lamb said, and I listened to him say, there's still 7 members. And that's correct, but you can ask the board members from another board to come and listen. Mr. Gus Calmary, he actually, I didn't realize that he wasn't a knight. So he actually came from the planning board to the zoning board and listened to the case. Now, I know that Mr. Calmary got very upset about stacking the board. Well, the zoning board, you have to have a resume, correct? And when I was put on the board, they actually publicly took the 3 members who had applied with their applications and publicly did that. Well, I don't think the planning board has to do that. I think it's only up to the mayor to do it. And I do want to say one thing. This is the beginning of getting rid of the zoning board. Once you put these 2 extra alternates in and put them in an ordinance, Mr. Calmary, when he first came on council as a councilman, brought this up. I don't think it was his idea back then. I kind of know whose idea it was. But I think this is the end of the zoning board once this happens. Because you'll have...
as the council controlling the zoning board, that is not going to happen as long as I'm sitting up here, unless the other 4 gentlemen up here vote
that's
no.
part of our problem. We're having an election coming up, and the people who are maybe put and voted in don't feel that way.
Okay.
So I feel that if you do something like this, you're opening up the zoning board to not be a zoning board anymore. And I think that's very important that this town have both zoning and planning. And I don't think so I personally don't think this ordinance should even be introduced.
You have 1 minute, Mrs.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to get to the bonding ordinance. It's $1 million for a firehouse. Everyone agrees the firehouse is needed. But I would like to know, when is the DMF going to be done? Remediation needs to be done in 2020, 2021. And because of the gas leak, there have been people who've worked in this town complex who have had cancer and died. DMF secretary, DMF director, police department director, purchasing assistant, CFO, assessor secretary, a woman down on Pascack Road sued this town. The gas was leaching. The joke was from the gas station down below. You're not going to leach on the same level. You're going to leach from up here down. And, you know, and then the DMF worker, young man, he left just about the time I left, and got very sick, and nobody knew what possibly made him ill. One other thing, when you do the fire department or the DMF, please hire a clerk of the works. Do you know what that is? I'm sure you do. That's very important. I sat here and listened to an architect tell me that he's going to come every 2 to 3 weeks and he's going to look at this project. Well, I sat at this town hall and watched them not build this building for months and months and months. And I watched a lot of the tar that went down on all the tiles go bad, freeze, thaw. So many things went wrong when we didn't have a clerk of the works. It's important to put in your budget so that this person can come, whether it be for the DMF building, whether it be for the firehouse. Clerk of the works, please put it in your budget. It's one of the most important things next year and for the next couple of years. Even when it comes to the, you're an engineer, but you don't have time to do this. But there should be someone who does it on a constant basis and knows, not just somebody who's a friend of somebody's.
No, you're right, Mr.
Because we have a lot of people like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time? Tony?
Tony Plantamura, 808 Robinwood Road. I'm not going to have enough time, 5 minutes, so if you're going to cut me off, you're going to cut me off. But first of all, I'd like to say that everybody seems to think that it's a great thing that we're going to get our traffic problem solved at the intersection at Washington and Pascack Road. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I've stated before that by improving that intersection, I feel that you're inviting more traffic there, and there's so much building going on in this area. It's going to allow for a continuation of inviting more and more traffic flow through that area. There should be a stipulation attached to this that when the Parkway Commission and the DOT resolves the issue of opening up a new north exit ramp off of the Parkway, then it would all be done at once. Until then, you don't have a card to get this ever done. And I am just so tired of the snake that I see down Washington Avenue. I cannot understand how anybody else in this area is not really outraged by the overdevelopment, especially of Bergen County. It's going to get to the point where I don't even want to live here, and I love New Jersey, but I'm starting to hate it. There is no grand plan at the state or county level to provide some kind of quality of life for the residents that pay these high taxes. I'm starting to feel that I'm paying for nothing. So this intersection needs to have that north exit addressed. I remember meeting with Janet Sopkowitz when she was the mayor, and it went nowhere. We discussed this, it goes nowhere. This town should have spent thousands of dollars years ago to resolve that north exit that should be applied to get this traffic out of here and get it up to the Golden Gate up there by Woodcliff Lake up there, that they seem to think that they don't want any of their traffic dumped there. They want it dumped in Washington Township. And I'm pissed off about it, okay? So I don't even want to live really where I am anymore, and you need to address that. Now, getting to the firehouse here, I happen to think our firehouse is in a horrible place and location. Nobody really talks about that, but it is traffic congestion. I don't know if anybody, listen, I have a family member that is a firefighter. I love law enforcement and firefighter, but I want to know why nobody ever talks about shared services. We're spending millions and millions of dollars here, and Mr. Ullman brought up a valid point last time I was here when you had a presentation from the engineers and everything, and the project managers. There is no really overall cost here. He talked basically about a shell. The furnishings were taken out. There were other areas. I don't understand, if we're all supposed to be the same and we're supposed to share and everybody loves one another, peace, love, and harmony, I don't understand why the ambulance corps can't share space with the fire department to lower the cost. I think that was a valid request of you, and I don't understand why anybody else isn't understanding that. And maybe we can share services with other fire departments. We don't all need a ladder truck in this area. We don't have high rises, okay? I was a police officer. We have small PBAs in this area. Paramus I was in, we needed our own PBA because we had over 100 members at the time. I think the police department here has shared PBAs, but everybody local has small departments, so they share. I'd like to see one day sharing fire departments, regionalize our school systems more, and sharing our police departments and regionalizing that. I guess nobody looked into that, but home rule is home rule, but sometimes you have to address the taxpayers. Okay, I'm not getting enough time, but I want to say something really sad here. That these people who are residents in this town that pay a lot of money for taxes have to hire a lawyer to battle basically politics. Do the right thing and don't develop that Viviano project. Because I was a kid that used to play on that property. I knew those people. There was something devious going on there. I played in that property. There was dumping back there in the 1960s.
Thank you, Mrs. Plintham.
Okay, I'm not done.
Yeah, you're
Do not appoint 2 more alternates to the planning board. Okay?
Thank you.
You're stacking the deck.
Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time? Mr. Schneid?
David Schneid, 91 Windsor Circle. Just to reiterate what Tony said. I said the last time, I'm very concerned with the traffic flow that was going through. I think we had, and I mentioned this, we had, when they did the last study, it was 14,000 cars a day. I have no idea how many cars a day are coming through here now. And with all the new developments that are going on, the new traffic light, in my opinion, is not going to help the situation from a standpoint of blinking when the fire is coming out onto the main road. We have a tremendous problem that's building here, and all of a sudden it's going to become so cantankerous that we're not going to be able to control anything. And we thought at one time with the previous council and mayor, we thought we might have gotten somewhere with Woodcliff Lake. And I think you all know what happened. Nada. And I'm just concerned what's happened to the town. I feel the same way Tony does. I think to get out there and see what's happening in the morning, to see what's happening at 168 all day long now, I'm around. I'm a realtor. You know that. So I see the traffic congestion that's going on. It's not against the fire department or anything else. We have to protect this, or we're going to be very sorry in this town. That's my biggest concern. Okay? And the last thing was in reference to the sidewalks. I know you mentioned it when I mentioned it about 3 or 4 meetings ago. I don't see anything done to the sidewalks like on Pascack Road where they're coming up from the trees that are overgrown and people can fall because one side's higher than the other. Please look into this and have them do it. The last thing is, I don't know what ordinance we have on parking, but around the lake, you all know what I'm talking about. There's someone there in a house that has probably 8 cars in a parking lot, and they don't move, but they're registered. I don't know what our ordinance says, how many cars can be in the driveway that never move, but it's a sad story. You go take a look down there by the lake, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I just think we should be proud of something. Those are expensive homes, and I know someone that just bought a house, built a house there, renovated it, and got nowhere from the town on this. And I hope you'll look into that ordinance. I don't know. Maybe the mayor can look at it, or someone. If we could have something, if you don't have a wide enough driveway and you have these cars constantly parked there, junks. All they are is junks there. And I drove on my bike there tonight. Please look at it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Mike, can I just make 2 quick comments, Mr. Stein? The sidewalks, the code enforcement official has started a couple of weeks ago giving out warnings. I've asked him to start at the schools and branch out because obviously the concentration more about the schools. And in reference to the cars, now that he's had the job for a while, he's writing up some recommendations that he will give to the council where he thinks ordinances need to be adjusted to give him more authority.
Yeah, on that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Mayor.
Yeah.
Anybody else like to come up at this time? Seeing no
I
one?
want to know if I could address Mary Osmond's comment about his assets.
Mike, why don't you close the meeting?
No, not at this time, Judith. Thank you. Motion to close the public portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Ordinance adoption, second reading, none. Introduction.
Anybody opposed to closing the meeting? Public discussion?
No.
The way you were looking, you looked like you didn't want, you had something that you wanted to add. Okay.
No.
No,
No
it's just
problem.
a dumbfounded look.
Introduction, first reading, ordinance number 19-19, bond ordinance providing for the construction of a new fire and emergency services facility in and by the Township of Washington, the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $6 million therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $5.714 million in bonds or notes of the Township for financing such appropriation. Motion to introduce and pass ordinance number 1919 at first reading by title. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming? Yes. Councilman Ullman?
No.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Resolution number 19-260, authorizing publication of ordinance number 1919 and schedule a public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming? Yes. Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Ordinance 1920 is being tabled. Resolutions. Resolution number 19-262, Fire Department bylaws. Do I have a motion?
Can I just make a comment on ordinance 1920?
Sure, Mr.
I don't actually think it should come up at the next meeting either. To me, this is not a council issue, it's a planning board issue. They have enough people on the planning board, and I think, again, we're being asked to do things for the planning board, which really has nothing to do with this, so that's my comment for next meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else on that?
I would agree. I would concur with Mr. Bruno.
Okay. I guess if we're going to discuss it, I want to, Mr. Lamb asked us how it was brought up, and I did go back and watch the meeting, and it was brought up as a recommendation by the planning board special attorney to us through Mr. Poller, which I did not recall that night, and I apologize, you know, my brain is fried after working all day long and coming here. It's my fault that I wasn't prepared for that, but I think they've asked us to add these alternate members. In no way have I ever seen that this is a way as presented of getting rid of the zoning board, so I wouldn't be for that. But I think it's an important thing that we move the Viviano or whatever application needs to be moved forward, because I'm going to state it on the record tonight that 75 is better than 150. And if the 75 units don't proceed, we're going to end up with a builder's remedy lawsuit of 150 plus homes up there, and that will penalize every one of us in township. And that's just the way I see it, and that's why I brought it up again, gentlemen. Just like you had your comments against it, that's my for it.
Mike, I agree with you completely that
So the longer
we're
we delay
opening
this, yes.
a builder's remedy.
Correct.
The thing that I would say is that
I want it done right. I'm not.
no, but you know, I wanted to address the planning board some time ago at a public session, and you know, it was pointed out that as a sitting councilman, we shouldn't do anything to influence that application. And the fact, because I'm on the council, the fact that this is being specifically requested for a specific application and is coming before the council for specific action, you know, I equate to us influencing that application. And I don't feel we should be.
Okay.
And that's why I concur with Mr. Bruno that we should not be adding this.
Dr. Castro, Mr. Clement? Anything?
Well, you know my feeling with this regarding an emergent situation. We talk a lot of times that something has to be passed right away, and every time that someone on the council brings it up, it's always been talked about you have to discuss it for 2, 3, 4 meetings before any action is taken. And this one is going pretty swiftly through the process, which I'm kind of surprised with. I understand that, you know, there's an application in front of the planning board right now that is it's a big application. It's been a big one for 20 years. So, you know, I think we should just take our time with changing any type of board, whether it be health board, zoning, planning, any type of thing of changing the statute that's going to have long-term ramifications. If we do have enough members on the board, that presents a quorum. The quorum is the quorum. Whether the board is made up of 20 members, 10 members, 5 members, if you have a sufficient number of people that are a quorum, then, you know, I think it might and should be able to stand as is. And we've done it for 20 plus years, 1982. That's 2019, right? So it's been functioning well for a long time, and I think it can function into the future as is.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Camaguedo?
I just want to echo your statement that we are going to be subject to a builder's remedy if this is delayed and put off and canceled any more times. And the other statement, which was very brief from you but very clear, was that we want to do things the right way.
Correct. I'm not saying no.
No, we all.
We all want to do everything
We all
the right
want
way.
to do the right thing and make sure it's done the right way. And keep the quality of life in the township as high as possible.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one comment, Mike.
Yes.
You know, we talk about builder's remedies here, and then months ago, we had our planner here with Mr. Paula, and I asked the question, when are we going to go in front of the courts, get all the paperwork done for our co-litigation, non-litigation? We were told in June we should be done. July, August, September. I have no idea where anything's submitted. Maybe you can ask Ken, but we were supposed to be done and dusted with this whole project, and we wouldn't have to deal with this. So here we are again, not knowing whether or not we're in the court, we're not in the court, you know, the special person who comes and drives around the streets. I don't know where we are with this whole situation, and we were supposed to be done. So we wouldn't have a builder's remedy. We wouldn't have any of these threats hanging over our heads if it was done properly and quickly. And now that's not done. Just delayed.
There are resolutions, resolution number 19-262, Fire Department bylaws. Do I have a motion to adopt the new bylaws?
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me.
You talk about bylaws, Mike?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just had one question. Last week, I had asked what the changes were, and it was section E1, changing the year to 55, but there was no, the representatives from the fire department had left. Can we just confirm that's the only
Yes.
change?
Mr. Agnello, could you mind coming up to the microphone?
Mr. Agnello has never been known to be shy.
No, he's not shy.
Yes.
We were just trying to, if you could just give us your name and address, please.
Michael Agnello, 667 Maeston Street, Township of Washington.
Mr. Agnello, the changes made to the bylaws, I was told verbally, but I'm not, Mr. Ullman's asked the same question we asked. We know that E1 changed from 65 to 55 as a life, as a good standing member, giving active life membership, right? Is that the one change?
Right, we also changed the classifications from active life to inactive life, stating the fact that they're no longer respondent to fires.
They don't have to respond to
So
fire.
they're basically a retired member. But I think we lowered
At 55.
I believe we lowered it from 60 to 55.
Oh, excuse me, I thought it was 65.
And 25 years of service.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Ullman?
Yes.
And Mr. Bruno, you had a question
I just,
regarding?
no, yeah, it's not really a question, Mike. Well, it is a question. Has this ever been reviewed by an attorney for language?
Not at this time. This bylaw, none of the ordinances, well, none of the bylaws have been changed, other than that section where we went from 60 to 55 and 25 years of service.
Everything
What we
else.
did do is we changed the classifications from an active life to an inactive life. We changed the name so that it would be a little less confusing on what a fireman is. Because you take a fireman who's left our department after 30 years of service, and we're calling him an active life member. He's not active, he's not responding to fires. Okay, I'm an active life member. I've got 40 years of service, but I'm still responding to fires. So we changed it so you know who I am and you know who they are. So what we did was change terminology. We didn't change any of the bylaws that have been accepted by this council in previous years, other than that one section of 60 to 55 and 25 years of service.
Yeah, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not looking to change anything.
I mean, an active life.
I just read it, and the only thing my concern was when it said, when you talk about an active member, it says it must be between the ages, be a resident of the township, and then said work in the township. So I read that to mean like they have to work in the township, but
No,
that's not the case.
that's just different
They can work in the
An
township.
example would be someone, like we have a fireman in our town who's on the road department in Emerson. He's also a fireman in Emerson.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure what the language was, that's
So
all.
if you work in
But
this
I have-
town
You could become
full-time, you could become a fireman in our department, because of course we're looking for
Yeah,
members.
I mean, I have no problem with it, I just read it, that's all.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
And just to clarify, Mr. Agnelli, the fire department has brought the bylaws in front of us in the last 5 years to review and look at. So
Yes.
I remember doing that recently, and
Yes.
we kind of approved.
We did it a few years ago.
So this is not the only thing that we've looked at in a
But
long
we're just,
time.
resolution number 19262 is for that one, those two changes, the 55 and the active and inactive life.
Well, that whole bylaw change is here for an approval.
Correct. Yes, the whole thing is, but the only change, if you redlined it,
Right,
was
if you go back-
60 became 55, and you added inactive and active life.
Right.
Motion, gentlemen, for that?
Thank you, Mr. Agnelli.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have a roll call, please?
Councilman Brito?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
Motion, agreed. Aye.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Bruno and,
Yes.
All in favor?
aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be September 3rd, 2019, starting at 7:30 PM. Thank you.